I should have just killed that damn Mungo. They have never been anything but trouble. Everything was fine until he showed up. He came in walking in, sword strapped across his back, two different pistols and holsters on each side of his waist, a dog following him. He was dressed up in this long trench coat, a cowboy hat with sunglasses on his head. I stopped being near him at the gate. Like all others, he just sits there that he wants to get into the vault and nothing else. Yeah, right. I tell him what the others do, and no Mungo's allowed inside. He kept arguing, saying he needed to get what he needed inside, saying that he could pay before storming off. A few days later, Sammy, me, and Squirrel, who had been taken by slavers, showed up. They were in bad shape, but they were alive, and they were the reason for this celebration. They tell us the story of how they did each other kid called Brian, who got to them to be in there that one day. He said he's from someone called Gay Graydish, which was recently attacked by these freaky ant fiends and spat fire. He even ran from them, trying to find help, when one of the slavers must have caught him. The thing is, Brian's collar was damaged and the squirrel was able to mess around with it, eventually finding out how to deactivate them. Then under the cover of the night, 3 of them made their escape, and they got out of Paradise Falls through a sewer pipe. But they popped out of somewhere and the slaver on patrol. Brian throws himself at the guy, tells him to run, and they ran. Then there was a talk about going back for Brian. I pointed out that he was probably dead by now. Sammy and Squirrel insist on going anyways, but they were in no shape for the rescue operation. I had to beat at that point to them, but a leader's gotta look out for his undercare. 3 days ago, who should have shown up was about Brian. Sammy and Squirrel were ecstatic. The kids were even in the worse condition than they already were when they showed up. I thought that he'd bleed to death, but Lucy managed to patch him up. He didn't talk much. He just said about managed to knock the slaver out cold. That night when it had happened, I woke up to let Dale give him some sleep. He was already dead, and Brian was there with a knife. He looked at me and he frowned as the gates were before taking his own life. Before I could do anything, a bunch of slavers were everywhere. Zip tried to get on one of them, but was whacked on the head and carried off. Poor Angela was just kept yelling at them, as if she was in a hit in the butt with a rifle. But Bowie managed to kill the slavers, but got his head blown off. I could see that brief look of terror in the eyes before they shot out of their sockets. Me, Lucy, and Eclair tried to help them from the great chamber, but most others were hiding. But they were overwhelmed. I struggled on one of them, but there was a flash of light, and it was over. I woke up the next day with a collar around my neck, and all the other kids. I was crowded into this cage. One of the slavers, Oogie Jones, was talking about how we had a great catch, and he and his men would be swimming in gold. That's when I saw him. That same Mungo that showed up at the entrance over a week ago was him. I blew a fuse right at the sight of him and started thrashing around the gates, trying to get close enough to beat him to a pulp. The Mungo just walked over and looked at me in the eyes and smiled and punched me in the groin. The next 2 days were a nightmare. Everyone who spoke up was beaten. Joseph got locked in the box. Lucy, Angela, Knock, Bumble, poor Bumble was taken one time to the slaver's bunker. None of them even talked about what happened. They just sat in the corner together, recoiling the sight of the slaver. Knick-Knack was the first one sold, but the others would follow. I couldn't stand it anymore. I am Mayor Robert Joseph McCready. The kids of Little Lamplight were under my protection. Tonight I am going to break into their armory. I will murder every last one of those slavers and lead my people back home. And even if I ever see that Mungo again, there will be hell to pay. The child lays on the ground before him. Even in death, there was nothing but pure hatred on his face. Perhaps this was for the better. McCready was a leader for the Paragon, and along the other kids. With him dead, the rest would be lean in their place. They would cause no trouble once his body was put in display. Secure in the knowledge that no one would ever find about this part of the me things, the lone wanderer left once more to Little Lamplight. And that, my little pretties, was Little Lamplight. I guess you could say a Fallout-free creepypasta written by Saul'keth. Saul'keth or something. I think that's how you pronounce it. My final thoughts of the story. I honestly really liked this story, I'm not gonna lie. This story was actually a pretty well made story. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I remember reading a few Fallout creepypastas, and this one I decided to go out of my way and read, well, a Fallout creepypasta. And so I decided, you know what, I'll go out of my way and narrate this one. Now, the first narration of this story was done 4 years ago by Silver Studio Stories. He is a narrator, if you guys are wondering. He actually, narrates stories, kind of like how Shadow Reader does, and he's read creepypastas and that, and he's a pretty interesting guy. He's really awesome. He's pretty cool. And I definitely have to say, you should really check out his channel if you haven't, because, he's the first person who narrated this story. And another person that recently narrated this one, I think that was like almost a year ago, was from Seabass, who is a Never Creepypasta narrator. He also narrates creepypastas, and I have checked out his channel too, and he's pretty cool. I recommend you guys check him out, and I recommend you guys check out, well, Silver Studio Stories. Now, I like how this story is focusing on MacCready, the leader of, well, you could already understand, the leader of Little Lamplight. So, MacCready, to be honest, was in Little Lamplight, and this was before, Fallout 4 happened. I honestly really like how the storyline was, like, really well done and amazing. Now, I could really understand that this one is, like, I think this is, like, an older story, which I think was written 2013 or 2014. Not really sure, but I really would have to say that this one is still amazing. Of course, it's not really much of a creepypasta in my opinion. I think it's just more of a, a fictional story or something, but it's still a good pasta. I mean, the grammar is really good in this story, and I like how the sentence structuring was displayed. And I do like how, it's all believable, because if you've played the third Fallout game, all the things that MacCready does. It's like, I mean, I know what MacCready does in, the Fallout games, because, I've been playing, well, a lot of, Fallout, so, yeah, if you've played Fallout a lot, you probably will get the opportunity in that, so, I really would have to say, it's a pretty good story. I really do find this one to be amazing, so, I really do like how, everything went out of this story. Now, I do really have to say that it's not much of a creepypasta, but I still find this one to be a pretty good story. I'm not gonna lie. This story was really excellent. So, I really have to say this one was actually a pretty fun story. It's definitely well made in detail. And to the author of this story, I hope you actually sit there and, well, be proud of yourself, because, I am really amazed of how good this story was. I really do like this story, and I really wonder if this author also written some other stories, because I would like to check one of them out. Now, I am very surprised there's only like 2 narrations of this, so I decided to go out of my way and do my own narration of this story. I really have to say, despite the fact that this story was not really a creepypasta in my opinion, but although it's still a good story, like, I mean, I've actually seen a few people, in the comments section of the pasta saying that, it's not really much of a creepypasta, which I would agree. It's not really much of a creepypasta, but I still find this one to be, enjoyable. It may not be the best, creepypasta, like I've seen, like a best gaming pasta, because I've seen plenty of them out there, but I still have to say this one is still pretty good and well made in detail. So, I actually have to say, I don't really have anything that I didn't like about this story. I can't really think of it. But I'm going to sit here and just say this right now, and like I'm always going to say, and like I'm going to say right now, and I'm always going to continue to say, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regarding these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story would have to be a 10 out of 10. It's a good, enjoyable story. It's really well made in detail. It doesn't really have a creepypasta vibe, but I still really found this one to be enjoyable regardless. It's still an enjoyable pasta. I really still find this one to be, amazing and well done. I really still found this story to be, fun to read. And it is on the regular Creepypasta Wiki if you guys want to check it out. And I highly recommend you go subscribe to, well, Silver Studio Stories. He's the first person who narrated this story. And you should also subscribe to Seabass as well, because they narrate pretty good creepypastas, and I highly recommend you really check out this story because it's like really well made in detail, and I really do like how the pasta went out of his own self. It's a pretty good creepypasta. I really do find this one to be, it's an amazing pasta with how the context of the pasta and, the stuff of how it went out. It's a really good, very well made story. So I'm gonna sit here and say this right now, that what did you guys think about this pasta? Just gonna ask you guys, what do you guys think about this pasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.